Hello. Okay, so today I'm talking about a topic that's a bit heavy, and I'm only going to be able to touch on it a bit because it's that heavy and sensitive, and it requires a lot of time to digest all the parts. So I'll do a few videos around this topic. I wrote a blog about it last year titled Be a Bully and Beat Your Child, and it really brought up a lot of disagreements and people had strong opinions, which I welcome because this is a topic that we're going to have to unpack together. It's not a judgment or a blame game. It's about awareness. So I have a deep passion for working to support the voiceless. All right. Anyone that has a hard time getting their voice out, I have a deep passion to advocate for that person or that group of people. And the group of people that I really, really um, love to advocate for are children. Children are the only group of people in this country where it is legal to physically beat them, right? It is legal to physically cause harm onto their bodies. Now, you may want to call it physical discipline, or we can call it for what it is, physical violence. We are causing violence to their bodies. Okay, we are violently interacting with them. So, this from a child's eyes is not easy to process, integrate, or make sense of, right? And I know this is going to trigger a lot of people, and that's cool because triggers are a good sign that that we're called to address things personally and collectively, right? But I'm still going to always advocate for the child so that I can put their voice out there, and then we can take it from there and see what will be best for our children. Okay. From the child eyes, it seems from their eyes looking out, what happens to them when when violence is physically occurring onto them. What they see is a person that they love and that they depend on and that loves them and that they trust. That person is bringing physical pain to their body. That's very confusing, right? That's a very confusing scenario for a child to try to integrate. Children are the only group of people where it is legal to cause physical harm to them or to physically beat. Maybe in some states, of course, there's rules on what constitutes physical discipline versus physical abuse, and there's a thin line. Do you know that in a span of 10 years, 3,600 kids have died as a consequence of physical beatings, which were totally legal, right? These children that died did not die at the hands of abusive monsters that were torturing children. No, they died at the hands of frustrated, angry parents that didn't have tools, that didn't have support, and hit and maybe in rage hit their child the wrong way, and the child fell and bumped their head, or hit the child with a belt or with a item, and internally the child started to bleed. 3,600 children have died as a consequence, right? Because they just were hit a little too hard that one day. Okay? So these things really do happen. And this is the only group of people that they are allowed to be physically harmed or physically interact physically with them with physical violence. If my partner hits me or throws something at me or roughs me up or something, that is illegal, right? That's domestic violence. If I attack another person in the streets, an adult in the streets, that's considered assault. I can go to jail for that, right? If a person takes a dog and hits the dog with the bat and hurts the dog, that person will be arrested for animal cruelty. So children are the only group of people where we think it's okay to beat on them, right? It's perfectly legal, it's perfectly acceptable as long as it's from the hands of the parents or someone that the parents put in their charge. Okay? Remember, it used to be legal to beat adults also, and that was called slavery, right? So because it was legal, did that make it right? So the enslaved people were considered, not a full human. They didn't have rights, and they were considered. Then they definitely were voiceless, and it was okay to beat them because, they needed to teach them how to act. Why are we following in these types of tactics? This is not our history. This is not our history. If you have a moment to read a book, one of a really, really great book, Dr. Stacy Patton wrote a book called Spare the Children. And it really talks a lot about how in the African diaspora community, how we are connecting some of our parenting tactics to that of European history and to that of history during slavery, right? And European history from way back. If you look at some of the ways that African and indigenous communities viewed children historically, very, very different compared to the way that Europeans of antiquity would view their children. Okay, indigenous and African people would view their children as sacred and divine beings. Sacred and divine beings, and they treated them as such. They wanted to have little interference with how their children viewed themselves and how they were growing. Right? They did not want to impact the children's path of where they were supposed to their purpose in life. Right? I'm going to end here because, again, this is a lot of information to unpack. I just want to kind of get our mouths watering so that we can have these discussions, right? So that we can ask ourselves, what are we gaining from these tactics and these parenting tools, if you will, right? We know that we have to discipline our children because discipline means to teach. So of course we're disciplined. Of course we're going to be disciplining. And if we're disciplining, we're here to teach, right? But what exactly are we trying to teach? If we can make an argument and say, yeah, if I give someone physical punishment, that will teach them a lesson. I am teaching them. I'm teaching them a lesson. But ask yourself, what exactly are you teaching? Are you teaching them to be afraid to speak up? Are you teaching them to be afraid to share and express themselves to you? Are you teaching them to hide parts of themselves from you and to them from themselves? Right? Are you teaching them to be numb so that when things get tough, they just go in a shell and they don't feel anymore? Are you teaching them to be ashamed of themselves? Are you teaching them to feel powerless? Are you teaching them to learn how to be sneaky? I mean, I can go on and on and on with this. This is a never-ending list, right? So you know that I am a feminine empowerment coach and I'm a clinical psychologist. And the thing is that we get stuck in this conditioning loop of how we interact with our children, right? We're getting in this loop of how we interact with our children, and it's not benefiting anyone inside of this loop, right? Because one, you're letting your emotions override you. You are getting in this masculine, uncultivated space, right? So let's shift this energy, right? Feminine energy is emotional, but it has a strong mental focus. So wouldn't it be nice to be in a feminine space where we're disciplining with love and compassion, where we're able to use structure and wisdom and strategy to help guide our children, but we're doing it from a space of clarity and wisdom and like I said, strong mental focus, right? Of nurturing and compassion and connection. Listen, when we know better, we do better. So now, if this resonated with you, please leave a comment and talk about what are some ways that you have successfully disciplined your children. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.